Welcome back to the Sabbath Question. Today we're going to do a quick recap of the previous videos and see how the linguistic structure and link between the words for Shabbat, which is our English word for Sabbath, and the word for seven is Seva, how those two are closely intertwined and the richness of meaning that the number seven and its associated words lends to the meaning of the Sabbath. So, as we've discussed already, the Sabbath, the Shabbat, the verb, is a specific historic event that took place on the seventh day of Earth's history, the seventh day of creation, the first seventh day in the history of life itself. So let's look at the word and how it develops into a rich picture that gives us a better understanding of Scripture as we go through the biblical narrative. So here we have Shabbat, the verb that gives rise to the noun Shabbat. The verb, God's action in time, and the institution that rises from that as Israel moves on its journey, and as the people of God from Adam through to the end time people will experience and understand the meaning of Sabbath. So, from Sabbath, we see the link to seven. Seven being the day on which Shabbat took place, the day on which God rested and was refreshed and enjoyed the fruit of his labor. And he blessed that day and made it holy. So the word for seven, seva, which gives rise to the English word seven. And then the close link from that word to sava, which means completeness, fullness. Again, we see that imagery coming through in the biblical text when we read Genesis 2, verses 1 to 3, that everything was complete, everything was in harmony, and God rested. And from there, we see the link to Shavua, the week, a series of 7 days which makes up the biblical definition of a week. Now, this is important because if we separate any one of these, we do some serious damage to the biblical narrative. And then the last but not least word that is associated with the word seven is right here, Shavua. It means to make an oath. In the ancient Near Eastern world, it had the connotation of sevening oneself. This means that you were completely bound, completely in agreement, fully engaged in a covenant. And as we discussed in that video, oftentimes there would be a sacrifice in which the lesser party especially would say that if the covenant was broken, they would be like the sacrifice that had taken place. In other ancient Near Eastern cultures, the exchanging of blood in some shape or form would be the ratification of the covenant. As a child, I remember there was this thing where people would either spit in their hand and shake hands, but that was a more modern representation of what people actually did, in which they would cut themselves and the two hands would be joined together to show that that mixing of blood was an oath bound in blood. So that is the imagery that this word gives rise to. And there's a space right here. Space right here. There's one more word in this rich tapestry of linguistic imagery that doesn't complete the picture, but it gives a lot more depth to this particular tracing of linguistic meaning to the word Sabbath. And in the next video, we're going to look at what this word that is missing actually is. And when we see this word, we will actually tie together all of these words which are bound to the word seven. If you haven't already, subscribe. Share the video with those who you feel may be interested to know more about the Sabbath as we continue our journey in tracing the Sabbath question to see just what it means from a biblical perspective, but also what it means for our lives today. Does it have any importance? Should we be applying the principles of the Sabbath to our lives today? If so, how? And what does that look like in reality? So thank you for joining. I hope you are blessed, and I look forward to seeing you in the coming videos. So stay tuned, and God bless.